Hello, I'm Frank Crane, and I'm a counselor at the Embry-Riddle Counseling Center. And my topic today is stress is for learning. And I think I wanted to talk about this subject because there is a great deal of confusion on the topic of stress. People talk about, I have so much stress, and my stress is causing me more stress, and I have to get away and just relax and get rid of some of this stress. And what am I going to do about all this stress? I think the problem is that the concept has succeeded so well that we've lost sight of the original meaning. And so I'm going to make the assertion that stress is a way of learning. It's an opportunity for learning. And I'm basing that idea on the original definition of stress by the person who created the idea of stress, Hans Sale. Hans Sale originally said something like stress is the body's non-specific response to any challenge. Okay. Now, when you hear non-specific, I think we want to think general all-purpose. So it's the body's general all-purpose response to any challenge. Back in the good old days, or rather the bad old days, the great, 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 great grandfather of stress was something that we know as fear. And our Stone Age ancestors knew a lot about fear. And they had some general, all purposes responses to the fears they face. Now, fears in those days, like today, are the intimation, the intuition, the feeling, the dread of being hurt. So when the lights go out, when animals come at us, when strangers approach, when there's a sudden loud noise or something, we have general all-purpose responses, our non-specific responses to these things. So the package that our Stone Age ancestors had basically four components, and these were run, hide, fight, freeze. Okay, run. Let's get out of here. Let's, get away from the situation, and that'll keep us safe. Hide. Let's jump behind this rock, and they probably won't see us. Okay. Fight. Get them before they get you. Get in there and hit them, knock them down, take them out, and that'll remove the threat. And then finally, freeze. Nobody move. Nobody move. Probably they won't see us. Okay. So when we move this forward, when we move ourselves forward, because we are the descendants of these ancestors of ours, and one of the things that we notice is we are descendants. So in other words, they survived doing this stuff. But we still have the basic four package: run, hide, fight, freeze. And it's really surprising how frequently that is misused in modern times. You can't do that stuff in your physics class, or at least generally you can't. So if I'm having a stress response in my physics class, what do I do? Well, I think the basic message is you take the non-specific response that is the stress and figure out ways to make it more specific. And as your responses become increasingly specific, you become increasingly adapted to the challenge, and you become better at coping with it, and you are learning, and you're making progress in learning. Okay, let's imagine that in 10 minutes you have a physics class, and you're walking across campus toward the class. You know the floor and the room. Of course, you know the building, so you're in good shape. You know basically how to get there. So if the basic primitive package doesn't work, doesn't apply, what does? Well, I'm going to suggest that a learning package applies. And this is plan, do, study, act. And we'll see more of what that means in just a moment. But plan, do, study, act was an approach to business and business cycles that was developed in the 1950s by the great management expert W. Edwards Deming. So we're going to use the Deming cycle or the Deming wheel to deal with the ancient Stone Age problems of stress. So you're going to the class, you're worried, you're not sure what's going to happen. So as you're doing this locomotion toward the class, you're kind of thinking, well, what do I know? Well, there's going to be people there. Threats of danger. I don't know, but let's see what happens. Let's figure out a way to cope with this. And then you get to the class and there's the room. There's everything's in place. People are sitting in chairs. No wild animals, no people with weapons. It looks pretty safe. Okay. But of course it's safe. Relatively speaking, this is a very safe place to be, a university classroom in America in the 21st century. So you are trying to make a plan that you can execute that will take into account all of the things you want to accomplish and that you can continue to recycle. So to do that, the plan, the doing, the studying of the situation, and the acting on what you've studied, there's some very helpful little additional tools called attention directors. And I'm going to suggest 3 that were developed by Aaron Ayala, a sports psychologist. And so the first of the 3 is WIN. The word is win. And the acronym here is what's important now. As you're going through the rounds of the class, as you're going through the moment to moment, you can be asking yourself, okay, what's important now? Well, it looks like everybody's sort of sitting quietly at their desks and they're watching the professor and, oh, I see he's turning on the computer and there's a PowerPoint. Oh, okay. So I'll watch the PowerPoint. What's important now? Well, watch the PowerPoint. And then what's important now? We'll see what's on the PowerPoint and see what useful learnings I can get from that and so on. Oh yeah, I need to take notes. That's important. Taking notes important. So I go through the class asking myself, what's important now? Also using my intuitions and my prior experience to get some hunches about what should I do to cope with this situation. And then sure enough, the hour is up. I'm still alive. There was no violence. All good. So I can say to myself, what went well? I'm sitting in a relatively peaceful spot at a relatively peaceful moment, and I'm thinking back in the class and I'm asking myself, what went well in that class? Well, I thought this went well. I thought I was polite. I said hello to the student next to me, and that seemed to get a good response. I complimented another student on the question they asked, and they seemed to like that. So, I guess that's something that went well. And then as I'm sort of totting up the things that went well, I can also ask myself, what's worth improving? So here are some things that I think I could do better. Well, how could I do them better? Well, I think if I had my notebook out and ready, I wouldn't have to make a lot of fumbling noises when I pull it out of my backpack. Oh, that's something. Okay. Maybe I should greet the people that I'm sitting next to, quietly without making too much of a fuss. That might be good. Maybe I should have a little pad to write down the assignments, maybe a scratch pad to do calculations or take down the professor's words of wisdom, and so on and so on and so forth. So you are making a plan, and then you're also in your mind doing the plan, and then you will be doing it in reality. And as you do it, you're also studying what's going on. You're looking for points that you might want to collect, like what's important now, or what's worth, what went well, that kind of thing. And you keep building out your plan until it's more robust and more specific and more fully developed. So I'm going from the general all-purpose Stone Age to the specific, useful 21st century. And the method in the 21st century is plan, do, study, act, supported by what's important now, what went well, what's worth improving. And thus, it works out and it pays off. And one of the things I notice is I'm not as frightened as I might have been at the beginning of class. I'm less anxious. I'm not afraid of my classmates. This is not the Stone Age after all. And I have ways of relating to people that don't frighten them, and I can use them in the course of executing my plan, and I can learn from responses from the professor and so on and so forth. So I've got a good approach to learning from stress. And ultimately, after many, many days of using this approach, and also noticing that I use this approach not just in physics class, but everywhere in my life. I plan, I do, I study, act. I ask myself what's important now, what went well, what can I improve, what's worth improving. When I do all of this stuff, I begin to have a framework in which I am a relatively confident actor, in which I am a learner. And I like particularly a description of this framework, which was given by Stephen Hayes, who is the founder of ACT therapy. And Stephen Hayes writes, I am here now, noticing the way I feel. I am here now accepting the way I feel and noticing my thoughts while doing what I care about. It's worth repeating. I am here now accepting the way I feel. Now, you may not feel great. You may feel frightened. You may feel angry. Who knows? But in order to go forward, you accept. So I am accepting the way I feel. And I'm also noticing my thoughts. And my thoughts may be helpful. They may be not helpful. This thought over here looks pretty good. That one is not so good. I'm accepting my thoughts. And I'm noticing my thoughts. And the big one is I am doing what I care about. And Hayes suggests that as we do what we care about, we get better at the doing, we get more relaxed at the emotions, and our thoughts kind of line up so that the more productive ones come to the front of our minds. And thus we become 21st century learners who have learned from stress. Okay, those are my thoughts about that, and perhaps we can discuss them sometime. In the meantime, this is Frank Crane from the Counseling Center, wishing you well. Have a good one.